Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Dan. Thank you to all of you who spoke this morning. Thank you to those of you who encouraged me to dedicate at least a good portion of today's service to this incredibly important topic. I'm so glad that we're sharing the faith this month with the Veterans Transition House. I had the opportunity to speak with their outreach director at great length this week and hear the stories of there's no other word for it, the miracles that this organization and so many others perform. Think of the men in my family. I've shared with you before that all the men in my family served in the military with different and varying experiences, and they brought who they were to that experience, and some came back okay and some did not. But on this Sunday, after an election in which, at least from my perspective, democracy was on the ballot but was rejected, we have even more reason to remember not just the men and women who have served in our military since the beginning of this republic, who have often been honored in name and yet not honored in their being or received the kind of support that they have needed to come back into the society of ours. Democracy is really hard. Democracy is really demanding. It not just demands the lives and the futures of so many of our young people. It demands of the rest of us who do or have not served in the military. It demands of the rest of us that we engage, that we remain involved, that we take responsibility, that we think, that we be active participants in what turns out to be an incredibly messy process. I, like many of you, had a reaction of deep disappointment in this election. I allowed myself, and I don't regret this, but I allowed myself to feel hope of the accomplishment of a brave, courageous, honorable woman of color who came into the race late and worked her heart out for us. Who in her own way and with the work and companionship of an extraordinary, new and different coalition of pro-democracy activists created a new model for who we might be. People of values, people of hope, and people of optimism for the future. I wasn't particularly shocked by the results. I was disappointed. And I was angry this week to read the typical ongoing diffusion of the blame game, right? Whose fault is this? It was all Biden's fault. It was all so-and-so's fault. This desire that we seem to have to find blame rather than sitting with what is. To me, it dishonors the effort and the hard work of someone who put herself on the line and endured abuse on a daily basis. Dear ones, I I also see this moment in our history as a moment perhaps of a wake-up call that came maybe in time to make a difference. And I don't say that glibly at all. I don't generally talk about silver linings, but I wonder if you and I and our siblings across this country and around the world can listen now in a new way from this place of hurt and surprise or shock. If we can create something good from these new understandings in this place that is here for that purpose. A majority of white women voted for the incoming president. The incoming president got higher numbers in virtually every single demographic. I ask us this morning, and I know it's a hard question. I know it's a hard question, but I ask you to bear with me. Do we as a nation, do we need to really take a close look at how well the promises of democracy have saved and served our people? Because the vote was no. And for a little bit of historical context, I will also say to you that, at least again from my perspective and the perspective of others too, from the beginning of this republic, this glorious experiment, there has been a pretty deep disconnect between these beautiful aspirational values of freedom, liberty, and justice for all, and the fact that in our nation's history there have been, according to some experts, only 17 years of peace. 17 years. We don't know exactly how many have lost their lives in the wars of this country, but it ranges from anywhere from 700,000 to 1,500,000. Don't know. It is a high cost. Liberty and justice for all, but also include and continues to include conquest. And an income inequality that is the worst now than it has been in the last 60 years. Even in the last 10 years. It got worse during COVID. Promises of democracy are hard to keep. In the year 2019, the Council on Foreign Relations released, and I believe they do this every year, but I looked at the one from 2019, they made a list of democracies around the world that are slipping into autocracy and dictatorship. And the United States was on the list. And I honestly don't say this to make anyone feel worse. I say this that maybe if we rip off the Band-Aid, then maybe we can repair. When we know what needs to be repaired, we can move forward. When we lament, share our grief, and then say, okay, what are we being called to? What are you and I being called to by this faith of Unitarian Universalism? What is the hope that we carry? The hope in the inherent dignity and worth of every individual. The hope that actually democracy is better, not only for our freedoms and our liberties and our capacity to live a better life. It's actually, democracy is better for our health, for our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health. And it is hard. We all have to be involved in keeping those promises. And we can. We can't, you and I in this room or on Zoom, we can't keep all of them ourselves, but we can keep the promise. Somebody brought up modeling how freedom and beloved community work, how respect for one another works, how understanding that the human family comes in a glorious variety of humanities and shapes and colors and cultures, but our yearnings are so similar. Our yearnings to love and be loved and held. Our yearnings to be heard and included. We can affirm that, dear ones. We can affirm that for one another. We can affirm a warm welcome. We can say, come be with us. We have a message, a life-affirming message that the future is ours to build. And while democracy appears to have lost the election, there are many, many millions of people in this nation ready to move forward and link arms with all of us. All of us who not only know that it can be better, we've seen it, we've experienced it, we believe it. All of us who will not let whoever is in the White House, whoever their cronies and accomplices may be, take away our joy and our pride and our commitment. Are you hearing me? I let that happen. I'm going to be honest with you. I let that happen during the first go-around, even though in 2016 I was the only person I knew who was absolutely 100% convinced that Donald Trump would win. Never underestimate the undercurrent of hate and racism in this nation. And yet, during that time, I fell into compulsively watching the Daily Chaos Show. You know what I'm talking about? And I allowed that to imbue me with a sense of almost ongoing despair. I did. And I make this promise in front of you, and you see me not keep it, just come up and say, yo. That's what we say in Philadelphia. Yo, that promise of yours. Get on it, girl. I want to love this world. I want to love the hell out of this world. That's what our Universalist faith teaches us. I want to love the hell out of this world, the pain, the poverty, and the injustice out of this world. And I want to do it from a place of love. Regardless of whether the next inhabitant in the White House thinks that the land of my ancestors is a floating island of garbage. It's his loss. His loss. We don't know what's going to come. But we are the love people. And my friends, my beloveds, if love hasn't won, it isn't over. Amen. Ashe. And blessed.